Board games, board games, and playtesting is what we're talking about. Board games and playtest events. I'm not gonna shout. Today I've got another show, and this is a debate between me and Chris.
Very nice.
Chris is the person over there. Chris is now dancing and waving with such flair. Brown hair and underwear. I'm sure Chris has it all. And Chris is wearing other things and will not fall because Chris has a good sense of balance, at least when sitting. I'm sure that Chris might struggle a bit more when Chris is somersaulting.
Yeah.
But playtest events, it's what we're talking about. Playtest events. I'm not going to shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It is 10 a.m. UK time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today we're talking about why run a big playtest event featuring, as I mentioned, Chris Kingsnorth. Hello, Chris.
Hello. Hello, how are you doing?
I am doing generally well. I'm going to say, honestly, about 4 out of 10. Okay. So, generally okay. I'm appreciating life. I'm not super low, just a bit feeling in a wee bit of a funk, but I'm generally okay.
Okay.
And QB says, good morning. And I'm glad that you didn't rhyme sitting with the obvious word. I did not think of that obvious word until he brought that up.
I did, and I was also worried about which direction it was going to take, but I'm glad we drove it away from that. So good job.
Thank you. I have to admit, there's a bit of... Okay, one of the recent highlights, actually... You know what? Is there anything you want to say about the main topic before we get any further? Because the reason I'm having you on is because you're a nice person. It's enjoyable to talk to you. Had you on before, talked about who you are generally. You've run a big playtest event. We thought we'd talk a bit about the value of that. But how would you like to introduce the topic?
Well, I suppose I could just give a bit of a background if people haven't seen of kind of what event it is I run, which is helpful for people, I think. So I run Protospiel Nottingham. So for people who don't know, Protospiels started in the US, and they are generally weekend-long gatherings of designers who generally play test with each other, but there are members of the public there as well. And in 2019, I thought, we've never done a Protospiel in the UK. I wonder if we could do one. Let's find out by trying to do one. And it went well. And so I'm back this year. Now we're able to, and people are interested, to do another one. And so this year it's going to be a 2-day playtesting event. And there's generally going to be hopefully about 100 people a day. So that's why we're talking today about, rather than your maybe weekly playtest where there might be a few people, this is a bigger thing.
Or even a monthly thing where you might have before we started, I suggested 15, but maybe 25 is a better cutoff, because at a Friday playtest, we have had a couple of times where we've managed to get to 20, which feels really big, but it's probably still not on par with the kind of events that we're talking about. I mean, maybe 26 and upward as a fairly arbitrary point is a good point to say that is a big playtest event. And this one that you're talking about, the 2-day Protospiel Nottingham, when is it?
So that will be this year, bonfire weekend for people in the UK.
5th of November.
Yes, indeed. So not only can you come to Protospiel, you can go to the big fireworks display, which is just down the road if it tickles your fancy as well. Yeah.
Are you saying that the Nottingham bonfire weekend is especially good one? Or are you saying that it's better than my local one in London?
I haven't been to that one, Ben, so I wouldn't like to pass.
I don't know. That's the thing. In London, you don't really get a local one. That was kind of might be a trick question, because it's really hard to access stuff. I mean, there's loads of good stuff happening, but London's such a big place. It's hard to travel. Whereas I reckon that Nottingham, presumably it's open access. It's a smaller city. I could walk over there, presumably from the centre of town, within 10 minutes.
Yeah, and if not, you can get the tram. So we've got a good tram network as well. So however people like to do, cycle, walk, tram, whatever, easy to get to. So a little,
you know what? I'm putting it in my thing right now, because I see that the following weekend, 11th, 12th, and 13th, Paul Grogan is running GridCon. And the weekend after that is a Gamers Gaming Getaway run by Dave Wedderall, which I'm definitely going to go to. And I'm excited for that. And that's a big camping thing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to set aside let's actually talk about your thing for 5 minutes. So tell me about it as a designer. When should I be coming? Should I be traveling in on the Friday night? Should I be going in on the Saturday? Can I stay over at your place? This is not obviously to everyone, but just to me. Could I?
So, yes, Bez, you're very welcome to. The way it works generally is that we start about 10 o'clock in the morning. So people, if they don't live too far away, can travel down on the day if they want to. We're in Nottingham, so fairly central. If you're in London, you can get to us directly on the train in a couple of hours. If people want to stay over the night before, it's in the centre of town. So there's lots of Airbnbs and hotels, depending on what your budget and thing are. So if you want to make a weekend of it, it's a great place to do that. You can see some of the sites as well. Come on the Friday, take the Friday off, have a great time in Nottingham, see the caves, see the Robin Hood statue, for example. But yeah, people generally would come down either the day before or the morning of, and get started around 10 o'clock. Goes on till about 6 in the evening, so not a really late day. So you've got some time to go out and have a nice meal if you fancy, or go and have a look around, or go to the fireworks. There we go. There's
indeed. I mean, that's going to presumably happen whatever time, the sun sets around then. Yeah. Which I imagine is that going to be after 6? I mean, is there time to get to the fireworks after the event finishes?
I think so. And the thing is, it's probably so close that if you are late for it, you'll hear that you're late for it and you can leg it across town. So, we're close enough to that. You'll probably know if you hear the first one go off that you probably need to pack up your prototype.
And maybe there'll be a few people who want to have like hey, here's a bunch of playtesters go over to the fireworks, and then we'll have a meal afterwards. Yeah, because I do like how in the UK they do these things at a time which is fairly suitable for youngsters. Before we talk about generalities, let's talk again we'll try and finish before 10:10. We've got 10 minutes to finish this, which is fairly appropriate. So tell me about how you're running this. What went into the thoughts of how people should book things? Is there going to be a schedule? Is it just going to be turn up and then this is my game and bring people to my thing?
Okay, so the way it'll work is it's 2 days. As I say, I'll start at 10 o'clock. What I did in the previous one was we had a talk from somebody in the morning. So this time we're actually going to have some breakout rooms where there'll be some optional talks to go to. So people can start playtesting a bit earlier if they want to, which is some feedback I got back. And essentially what we're going to do is we're setting up, it's an open kind of cafe area, beautiful, like big windows. And we're going to have set up some 2-seater tables, some 4s and some 6s, and basically it's kind of reciprocal open playtesting. So you find a space on a table that suits you, you find some players who are also probably designers, you play your game, and then the idea would be it's kind of a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of idea of we've played my game, now I'm gonna offer to play yours. And the idea would be throughout the day you just play as many as you can, as many as you want to, move between tables, meet people, and just have a relaxed day where it's not, you don't have a specific time slot, you don't own a table, it's basically everyone's on the same level. If you come to the event, everyone gets the same chance to play test things. And I'll probably be more chaperone, kind of what's the word, not chaperone.
And if there was someone who was clearly on a table for many hours, you might be checking in to make sure that they weren't abusing the system of everyone else's time.
And that'll be my role.
And presumably it's a case of, okay, if you've got a bunch of shorts games, you could sit there and play them 10 times through over the course of an hour and a half, and before you set off to play other people's things. Or if there's a long game, it might be that, okay, there's this one really long game and then you just play it once. And then after that, you might spend the rest of the day or the rest of the weekend doing your thing. Or you might come back to, hey, now I'm going to bring out my stuff again because now I feel... And a lot of it sounds like it's sort of self-governed. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's basically the ethos of Protospiel in general is kind of mutual respect and kindness and helping each other out, essentially. So yeah, generally we would expect people to sit down together and sort of talk about, you know, my game's this long, my game's this long, shall we do this? Let's plan it. So yeah, I expect people to come with that. I'm not going to handhold you. I want you to have whatever the best experience is. But if you need some advice, then I'll be there and I can help sort of match people up and do that kind of thing, which is important at these events, that people don't feel left out and don't sort of sit somewhere waiting for playtesters and there's a playtester waiting somewhere else and doesn't know about it, kind of thing.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And a quick good morning to Start Player Roberts. And before we finish up with that topic, is there, you said 150, presumably there is a limit because of the space that it's at.
Yeah, so probably what we'll do is we'll have about 100 people, 100 tickets per day, and people will be able to either buy a day ticket or a weekend ticket, which will be a bit cheaper for the 2 days. Kindly this year as well, Panda are actually sponsoring, so in your ticket price you'll get a free drink each day. Yeah, nice. So free drink each day, which is nice. Something people wanted last time that I've taken on board, so they're kindly doing that as well, which is nice.
I mean, who wouldn't want free drinks?
Precisely. So just a little sweetener there.
So let's crack on and let's talk about recent highlights, living life and setting the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. I will go first with what I was up to. Not going to lie, the rain and weather did put me off going outside. I kind of stayed indoor all day. I did watch a wee bit of a few shows online. I watched Memento. Have you seen this film?
No, but I've seen it in my recommended. I've put it in my watch list because I've heard great things about it.
Memento is a fantastic film. I'm just going to say that it's got one of the most unique, chronological orderings of things. So you've got two narratives, one which is running backwards throughout the time in clips that,
oh wow,
hey, you see this, and now you see the thing that happened 5 minutes before, and now you see the thing that happened 5 minutes before that. And then on the other narrative, you see this black and white thing that goes in forwards. And this kind of gets you into the mindset of the main character who's got anterograde amnesia, which means that they're not able to develop new memories, which means that because of this cinematic device, you share their surprise at what's going on. When the character says, okay, what's going on? I'm chasing this person, and then they start chasing this. And you have that moment of bewilderment and confusion along with them because it jumps far enough behind that you don't quite make the connection to what you've already seen until the final couple of seconds. And then quite often that will completely change the context of what you saw at the start of the previous clip. It's very nicely done. There's a lot of humor. There's a little bit of darkness. There are themes of death and revenge and taking advantage of people. And so if you feel like you don't, if all you want to see is something super happy-go-lucky, then maybe it's not for you. But I'm not going to say there's anything terrible. It is just such a wonderful roller coaster of a ride cinematically. I think it's well worth watching.
Great. I will take that recommendation.
And there was a couple of Board Game Arena things I also played. But how about you? Have you played anything? Have you got any recent highlights?
So I recently got a copy of It's a Wonderful Kingdom. So it's the two-player version of It's a Wonderful World, the sort of cube engine building dystopian future game. This one's set in kind of a low fantasy universe, and it's a two-player game where you basically do this really cool drafting system where you put out offerings of cards and the players have to decide what it is they're going to get, the other player, and you get little modules you can add in that are sort of, they add in adventures and scenarios. That was really, really nice. And on the film side of things, I also watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was one of the best films I've seen. My top.
Did you see that at the cinema?
No, I actually saw it. It's just come out on streaming, and I saw it on streaming, and it was wonderful. I really, really liked it. Very different, very bright and colourful, and lots of unusual, unexpected things happening. But a feast for the imagination.
I have heard wonderful things about this film, but I've never had a chance to check it out in the cinema. What streaming device
It was on Prime, Amazon Prime, and actually at the moment it's really good value. So I think I got it for like £4 something. So definitely worth that much money if that's something that you can do. Definitely, I would recommend it.
Okay, and the things that I have been playing on Board Game Arena, which I did do quite a bit of yesterday. I've been playing Next Station London. Let me double check. I've got Next Station London by Matthew Dunstan. Have you played this?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
So this is a lovely roll and write where each turn, one of essentially 11, 10, depending on how you count, because there's one card that's kind of special, cards come out. And you see there's blue cards and there's pink cards. And the only difference is that once all the pink cards are out, that's the end of that round. So on Board Game Arena, there's a little cross beside all the things that have come out. So it kind of trains you to do a little bit of this card counting, which is actually how you want to play it at a high level. So I can see on this round, I've definitely got a square coming up because that's not come out yet. I've definitely got this triangle coming up, and I may or may not get this wild card because as soon as the pink ones come out, that's the end of the round. And each round you play with a different color of line. You might have one fork during that, and by the end you're going to have 4 different colors of lines, sprawling essentially a vague abstraction of a underground network. Crossing the Thames a number of times gives you points, and most importantly, each round it's the number of areas you're in multiplied by the number of stations in your most densely populated area. So you want to balance these numbers to get them to be quite equal.
Nice.
I've also got Couple, which is one of the games for the L deck, which I'm just playing. This is where I played with Panda, and we got up to 11 points, which is really fun. And there's always a sense of satisfaction, although, hey, I've got Binders, if you can see how Binders just got scored there. And then Seikatsu, which is also a fantastic game, if I viewed the game replay, and show you very quickly. Have you played this one by Isaac Shalev and Matt Loomis, I believe?
No, I haven't, but it looks beautiful.
This is a wonderful game. I played it in real life with McCall. We played it. It was either 2 or 3 times in a go, which is fairly normal for us, but we'll play a game, and then if we liked it enough, we'll play it again. If not, then not. And it's got this wonderful balance between mid-game scoring, where right now you are scoring 2 points for every similarly colored bird to the one you're just putting down. And then there's this other balance with the end game scoring, where you see there's also a few different types of flowers that these birds are perched upon. At the end of the game, there are these different points values. So if you've got just one kind of flower in a line, you'll get no points. And as you get more and more flowers, they'll become more valuable. So if someone's got 4 flowers in a line, you really want to stop them getting that 5th one, because that's 6 points. And so it's all about balancing these opportunities for scoring with the end game scoring. And it's relatively quick. It's a joy to play. And as you can see, this final game was incredibly close, where I got 101 points and they got 99, I believe.
Ooh. Oh wow, that is tight. I like it. It looks great. It's beautiful art as well.
And this and Couple are both in beta, and if you're interested in those games, then do check them out. What's your opinion on Board Game Arena?
So I really like it. It's one of those things that I love the fact you can play it in your browser. So it doesn't involve anyone needing to have anything special. And people, even people like my dad, who is not into playing things, like he'd never do Tabletop Simulator, but he was in hospital last year, and we were playing Jaipur quite a lot on Board Game Arena, because he could play it on his phone, which is nice because it's a browser-based thing. You don't need to have a really powerful computer. It doesn't make your computer like pant like an asthmatic badger like Tabletop Simulator likes to do when the fan gets going. So yeah, from that point of view, I really like it, and there's a really nice selection on there, even of the like free ones, which I think is great to get people sort of into the flavor of games.
Yeah, and if you only have, one person with the premium account, then everyone in your family can play those premium games, which is quite nice.
That's nice. Yeah, I do like that. It's also a nice kind of try before you buy kind of thing. If there's a game you think, oh, I'd like to try it, but I'm not sure. And it also gives you a bit of that kind of guide through how to play the game, which I know we talked about last time about the fact that it will not yet let you do some things. So you can't do them. And then that lets you go and look why you can't do them in the rule book, which is nice. It stops you from getting it wrong first time.
I will say that I did play Seikatsu and Couple on my phone for a wee bit when my laptop was broken, sadly. But Seikatsu, because of the way that the tooltips work, when you roll over something, it can be, depending on the exact way that it's implemented. In the real game, it's click, and then click to where you want it to go. But then in the mobile phone game, sometimes clicking selects the P, sometimes clicking is like a tooltip over. Whereas, ironically, because Couple doesn't have any tooltips as such, I mean, it's not like you hover over this OF card and then it says on it OF. You just click on it and then you click to where you want it to go. So there's nothing to mess up with. But
that's good.
There's also a quick question that I completely missed. I do apologize, Robert. When are tickets going to go on sale for Protospiel Nottingham?
So I'm hoping in the next week or so. I've just got some information back from the venue just to check with numbers and how many we can fit in. So now I'll be able to make that ticket page. If people keep an eye on the Protospiel Not's Twitter or on the protospiel.co.uk, protospielnottingham.co.uk website, that'll have announcements about it. I'll make sure that I send it out to as many places as possible so you'll know about it once it's ready.
But we're talking like before the end of September.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Way before the end of September.
So before the end of August?
Let's say before. Oh, you're trying to narrow me down here, but I see what you're doing. It's clever. I will try my very best to get it by the end of August. I'm hoping early next week.
So we're talking like end of August-ish. We'll give Chris some wiggle room. And then
thanks, Beth.
I think that there's something brilliant about getting things on sale and getting them through some sort of online platform. And I think that in this day and age, sometimes we take that for granted. But would you agree that online sales are themselves a brilliant thing, a little thing which is brilliant?
I would say so. Yeah, it's so much easier to find out about events and also to have tickets and things on your phone, so you don't have to print things out unnecessarily. So yeah, online sales, from my point of view of tickets, is all good.
And yeah, Robert, I'm glad that you're also excited about that. And whether those sales are, I mean, Kickstarter is kind of an on-sale platform, but having Big Cartel, which I use, and then having that sales system and knowing, okay, that's how my things are going to go through. And then I know that if I sold stuff through multiple channels, I'd be forgetting about stuff. I mean, there's actually, now I remember about it, there's one package that I really wanted to send to a board game shop because they were opening and like, oh my gosh, I forgot to send it to them. And then I'm really happy that a few weeks ago, one of the best day pictures, someone was like, oh, that's beautiful. Can I buy it off you? And I said, you know what? I'm going to put up a special thing on my shop. Buy that, because otherwise I will forget. It'll keep it all in one place. And sure enough, having it all in one place, it means that I remember it. It's like, okay, these are the things that I need to ship out. These are, things.
Definitely.
Now let's get into the main topic. I invite people to comment, ask questions from like follow, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching after the fact. Let us know what you think, and I'll try to respond to everything. And if there's something that seems pertinent to Chris, I'll try to pass it on.
Definitely.
Robert wants to mention a brilliant thing about larger playtest events is a deadline. I've got a playtest slot at Tabletop Scotland, and it's making me create something presentable to the public and not just designers. And I kind of sometimes feel like that can be a problem when there is this pressure to not just focus on the mechanisms, but also the visuals. Isn't that a possible drawback of a big thing where you've got this pressure of, oh my gosh, I've got to make it look good?
I think it depends who the big playtest is with. So, for example, Tabletop Scotland, I imagine there's probably a higher proportion of the public, or your hobbyist game players, to designers who are going to be doing the playtesting for designers. So, in that situation, yes, getting the visuals and things might be something that you're like driven to do. At Protospiel, for example, it's mostly other designers, and I think there's that kind of understanding between designers who are playtesting other designers' stuff that actually we know prototypes can look ugly, and actually we are probably more likely to get over the fact that it's on the back of an envelope and we're still willing to play it. So I guess it gives you a different kind of focus. So maybe one with the public, you're thinking more about aesthetics. Maybe the one with the other designers, you're more thinking about the mechanisms. So I think there's space for both, and I think that's the important thing. It's offering people the opportunity to have different events that have slightly different reasons for being.
I guess that, yeah, I feel like that is potentially one good thing about a big playtest that you've touched upon. Because why is a big playtest event good? Let's us actually list the ways. And I'm going to throw you a bone here, Chris, and say that one possible way, although again, I'm going to argue against it, one possible way might be that you will get more people who are just there to playtest things. But having said that, I am aware that, as you say, at Protospiel or at the one that was run in Croydon, it was mainly designers. It was like 70+% designers. And that feels on par with what we get on a Friday. At like tomorrow, I'm going to go to National Theatre. We're going to do some playtesting. Sometimes, like I think it was last week, parents came along with 2 small children and was like, hey, we're just out here to do something different and to playtest these games. Oh, wow, this was quite fun. Yeah, we might be back at the end of summer after we've come back from our travels, or we might not, but it was really enjoyable to be here. And I think that there's something really lovely about curating that space to say, yeah, the first time you come, you are very discouraged from playtesting your own thing, because we have had problems in the past to say someone comes along, literally playtest their thing for 1.5 hours, and then they literally leave the event. So we try to make it so that you can come to just one slot or the free slots, because it's like a very structured free slot day. And it's okay for someone to just come to one slot if that's all they can. And if that they can literally only come to the last slot, hey, maybe every 3rd week that you come, you will playtest your game. But if it's your first time, don't expect to playtest it. And as a result, yes, we get lots of designers. Yes, we get lots of people who are regulars, like Paul Mansfield, who doesn't bring a game, but isn't exactly the general public. But yeah, there is a potential for bigger playtest events to be interacting more with the general public, but I'm not sure how much I actually see that at something like a Protospiel.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things that I think a lot of it is how you frame the event before you do it, and it's kind of setting people's expectations of what that event is for. Is it an event where you're welcome to come and do one playtest and then go, which might be great for someone who's really busy? Maybe it's an evening and they just need to do that and go because they've got to look after the kids or whatever the reason is. But also, if you're honest and you say this is a 2-day event, you can come to one if you want, you're going to come and you're going to have the whole day to play. So why not try your game, but then try other people's? And I think it's really important to set the expectations at the start for that exact reason. Protospiel, the ethos of it is this reciprocal playtesting, and I think that's really, really important. I think Robert's just put a comment about the unwritten rule of Protospiel, which is the unwritten rule. I definitely am turning into a written rule, which is this is reciprocal and everyone's there to get the most out of it. So please, if you play a game with, your game gets played X number of times, try and give that back in time. And I think if it's a whole day event, you kind of committed it. You're like, oh, I'm here for the day, and maybe feel more willing to do that than if you're there and you're like, I've only got 1.5 hours, I've got to get this done, go. So I think that's one of the benefits of it being not just bigger in number of people, but bigger in time and longer.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And if it's a multi-day event, that's got its own advantages. And similarly, on the Friday, back pre-pandemic, we actually had not only written it, but we kept track of people's virtual currency. So basically, each playtester that you got for an hour and a half, because that was the length of the slots, you would get essentially charged 1.5 points. So if it was one playtester playing your thing, you'd get charged 1.5 points. If it's a 5-person playtest, you'd get charged 7.5 because it's 1.5 hours times 5 people. And then it would kind of work the other way, that the more time you give, the better. And then we got to the points of, okay, there's some people like Paul Mansfield who are just accruing points and now into the hundreds over several years. And yeah, it felt like we didn't need to regulate it so exactly. And it was just also lots of time for us to have to then track that for everyone and like make sure, okay, this is what was played, this is exactly who was in it, and if there's someone who is part of this playtest group, now we make another rule for them on this spreadsheet. And there was a ridiculous spreadsheet with all these points values. And you can imagine that after a couple of years, it was kind of unmanageable. And it felt like, yeah, what's the point? And there were a couple of people who said that they benefited from it being written out loud. The remote playtesting group, there's a spreadsheet of how long tests take and who took part in what. So you assume someone checks. No one's just playing their own stuff and leaving, says Robert. I mean, I don't know if you have to check it to the same degree that we did in terms of analysing the numbers, but I think that having some sort of vague record and then, yeah, certainly in an environment where you can't just look across the room and be aware of what's going on because you've only got like 3 groups at once, maybe it's better to have a written record, which of course for a big playtesting event is completely unmanageable.
Yeah, I think having someone who's got an overview of just the feel of the event, and that would be me at Protospiel, for example, and just kind of being there and seeing, you know, oh, that group's been there for quite a long time. I might just mosey over and just say, hi, how's it going? Anyone got any problems? If you see people who are on their own with their game out in front of them and there's someone who hasn't played it, just going over and finding people and saying, look, do you fancy having a go at this? And doing that is important. I think, especially for a big event where there's not someone writing down everything, you've got to have a degree of trust, and you've got to, you know, give people the benefit of the doubt. They're going to come and they're going to like be in it for everybody. And again, it comes back to that setting the ethos and setting the expectations for people, which is done, you know, for Protospiel is done on the website, done when people book. And also in the morning, I generally just give a quick little hello to everybody. Here's what we expect. Because, you know, I think people respond well to that if they get treated, you know, respectfully, but they get told this is kind of how it works. I've not come across any major problems. But you're right, in-person playtesting events, you can do it in a different way because you can kind of get an overview of how things go. Definitely.
But we are talking about big playtest events, and convince me that they're good. Convince me that not only should I be going to the monthly Sunday at the Jugged Hare, and potentially we might be starting a new Thursday at Liverpool Street, and the Friday, which is the big thing for me, going to National Theatre. Not only should I be going to these things, which admittedly the National Theatre is longer than a typical short evening thing where we meet at 10, we start playing at 11, and we go on until 5. But convince me, what are the reasons that, not Protospiel Nottingham specifically, but why would I want to seek out more things? Why would I maybe want to even organise something myself in London potentially?
Yeah, so I think one of the big reasons is that it appeals to a group of designers who might not be able to come to the smaller, more regular ones. So I'm thinking about people who maybe they have really busy evenings normally, but actually if you say to them there's going to be a day on this date later in the year, they can schedule that in for their life. They can say, cool, I can arrange childcare, or I can do this and that, which means that I'm going to have that weekend for me to go and spend the whole weekend doing design. So I think having it as an event that's like a bigger one on the calendar can be useful for some people. And I think that it's one of those things that longer events with more people, that especially if they're over more days, they can be great for sort of, you can iterate during the event, whereas in an evening event that maybe lasts a couple of hours, often you play your game and you'll think, right, next time I come back I'm going to do this, this and this. Actually, something where it's longer, you could play your game in the morning, take half an hour to go and change some things, or overnight do it, bring it back the next day, and actually you could play multiple iterations of your game within one event, which I think is something that's beneficial, and it's harder to do in a shorter event, essentially.
Those are a couple of really great points. The first one I'd not considered, that yes, it can be easier to set aside a longer chunk of time. Myself, even setting aside the notion of coming in from out of town, if it's a 1 hour travel, then I'm okay doing 1 hour travel if it's an event that's the bulk of the day. But going down to Croydon for, I know they've got something every couple of weeks, but it's only from like 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. And so, yeah, it doesn't feel worth it. And so like the travel time, even though I don't have to organize childcare, it just doesn't feel worth it with the travel time. And so
travel's another one.
Yeah, but conversely, if you've got childcare, that's even a bigger thing. That's, hey, having like a few hours this day, a few hours once a week, that can be really problematic. But then saying, okay, we've got this one chunk, let's go for it. But the second point of, hey, you can do iteration during it, I guess that's unique to maybe bigger prototypes where you do need to take a bit more time, because obviously there are a lots of times when you can iterate, when it's not necessarily about changing the components, but it's, you might say, okay, this is the game. Hey, wait a minute. Someone's suggesting that we collect 4 cards of the same kind rather than 3 cards. You know what? That's an interesting thing. And this game's only 10 minutes. So let's play it again. And then we decide which one's better. And I've done that so many times where I've presented a game and you've played maybe like 5 different versions of it. So I'm talking about like quick games that take, and obviously the context is different, whether that's a quick 5-minute game, especially for the LDEC, where I'm never going to change the components for one single game.
Of course.
But yeah, I might change the components for the 10th anniversary or something. That's a separate issue. But like, anything else? Any other reasons that we should be considering going to one of these events or even running them ourselves?
I think that it's what the other thing is kind of what we touched on earlier on, which is the fact that if it's in a new city or something, you can make it a weekend. You could make it something interesting that's not just about the playtesting that you might not otherwise do. You can go out in the evening, you can see a new city, do things like that. And I think it's important to consider those things as well. It can be an opportunity if you're going somewhere to see that place as well. And also from a like organizing it point of view, many of these bigger playtesting events, and even some of the smaller ones, the money that's made goes to charity. So Protospiel, for example, is a not-for-profit event. So we pay for the venue, we sell the tickets, and anything we get above and beyond the price we had to pay for the venue is all going to charity. And I think as a running it point of view, I like the fact that I can offer something to the community of game designers and testers, but I can also offer something to charity or do it as kind of event that has benefits for people in general. So that's, for me, is one of the reasons I do it, which I like the idea of. And I think it's easier to do with big events because you're likely to get more people. And because it's a bigger event, you can kind of make it more worthwhile for people, but also do some raffles, do things you might not be able to do in smaller events that can make some money for local causes, charitable causes, which is a big part of it for me. And Protospiel as an ethos, that's always been the way that it works. It's a not-for-profit thing.
And it's really interesting. You talk about the raffles, and we've touched upon the free drinks because, it was worth someone sponsoring this because there's enough people there. And similarly, you can say, okay, it's worth us having these talks. It's worth us. There's a certain critical mass at which it becomes worth having more stuff, right? Yes. And there's a certain critical mass at which you get enough people to have a good conversation. you weren't ever at the BG DevCons that I ran. I might run one last one before I emigrate.
I have never, but I would love to.
So the philosophy behind that was, let's get a bunch of designers together, and we're not allowed to playtest. And obviously that makes it a very different thing. But the talks, the micro talks, all of those things that were run, it's only worked because of the critical mass of people. And similarly, there are these opportunities where you can, and I would like to explore specifically with playtesting, what are the things that we can do with the critical mass of people? Is it, I mean, could we, I don't see it being done what I would call enough, but could we do something to make sure, okay, there's, we don't want to be elitist or highlight certain things, because then it becomes more about demoing rather than playtesting, which is not a cool thing. But when I ran a thing for a board game cafe in London back in the day, pre-pandemic, we decided to brand it as the games of tomorrow, which sounds quite exciting. And so we say, okay, you are going to be playtesting this. There are going to be problems with it. You will make notes, and your opinions will get folded into the actual game. And that's an important thing, because so many people have talked about, recently people coming to a playtest event and trying to do more demoing rather than playtesting. And I would like to touch upon how you stop that happening, if you've considered that a potential future problem.
Yeah, I think when you've got a bigger event, the chance of people using it as like a promotional thing is higher. I think that can work both beneficially and detrimentally. I think if people want to do that and there's a specific area for it and people know that's what that is, I think that's fine. If it's like, this is what this is. If it's surreptitious, I think it becomes problematic. When we did the first Protospiel, we invite publishers along as well, because I think they're not just there to be pitched to, but actually they can provide some really good feedback on games and a different viewpoint that isn't necessarily provided by other designers. And we're hoping to do the same this time, and they come along and they can give their feedback too. And I think that's kind of that kind of thing is important. With regards to like the games of tomorrow, it's quite nice now that we had the Protospiel a few years ago. There's actually some games there that have now been published and have come to fruition, and that's really nice to have kind of alumni of Protospiel or whatever event it is, so we can say to people, look, here's some that have come through, they found the process useful, why not come and bring yours? And it kind of, the more these things go on, the bigger they get. I think the draw of it is more because you've got evidence to show it's useful for people, and that's always important as well, isn't it, to prove you're doing it, that it's actually worthwhile for people to come.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting, we were saying that at the Jugged Hare in London, if you opened a shop with just the games that had been playtested there, would actually have a fairly good range of games.
Great.
I mean, maybe not enough for a good board game shop, I'm going to be honest, but you would have like a good number that people would, oh, this is like a really nice collection, maybe part of a general gift shop in the bar. And then there was one point where we were saying, oh, maybe we should suggest this to them, but then realistically, they're not going to be able to, there's not going to be random board gamers looking to buy. I mean, maybe Yogi would do fine on sale in a bar, but something like Days of Ire or Nights of Fire by Dave Turksey might be a hard sell to a typical bar patron.
Maybe. Depends how much they've had, right? It might be an easy sell if they've had a few first. They might regret it later, but you know.
But that's the worst thing, isn't it? Like selling a game to someone, like you want to make sure people actually appreciate this. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to say, okay, so firstly, one point about all the charity going on, that is unique to certain Protospiels. It's unique to Protospiel Nottingham, not necessarily the whole Protospiel umbrella. For example, Protospiel Online, it is done with a view of making some profit for the organisers to pay for the time that goes into organising these things, because talking about things that's only possible with when a certain number of people go in, I know that Protospiel Online, it's very keen to have these coffee talks where if you're tired of the playtesting, you can go into this other Discord channel because it's all virtual, where you've got someone who you might have heard of talking about how to meet up with reviewers or how to consider colonialism and not be a dick when you're making your game and not be a thoughtless, heartless person. And that sounds really negative. How to be a thoughtful, heartful person, I should say.
Well, you're right. Like, you're not wrong. Like, we do need, like, that's important. I agree. Having those kind of chats and things is great. And something that I'm cognizant of this time is kind of having that, and we're probably going to have these kind of like breakout rooms. One might just be for people to chill and just get, you know, if they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, or it's one they want to go and have like a bit of time there. But also we'll probably have a room where there will be those kind of talks you can break out into. We'll probably have one from someone like Panda about manufacturing your games and considerations there, and we hopefully have a couple of other people who are willing to come and speak just to give their even if it's just their viewpoint or their experience of the board game world. That's really important, because I think there's a lot of designers who, not because they're trying not to, but they don't understand everyone's viewpoint. It'd be really nice to have an opportunity for them to do that, to go and learn something that they might then take and improve their game design with. So we're definitely going to be having that as part of the event.
And one other thing that they have at Protospiel Online is they have actually got these paid positions where it's not volunteers, it's people who are being paid a small hourly wage to make sure that everything's okay, to make sure that everything's running smoothly, to say, okay, in the case of any issues, I'm going to guide you towards where you need to be. I'm going to just jump into the things momentarily. And I know it sounds like you're basically taking this all on yourself, but by having actually paid staff, essentially, you are then able to foster a nicer, more curated, more welcoming, potentially experience. And for anyone who's, for anyone who's coming just to play, those people should absolutely be prioritized. And on a Friday, I typically, as the host, and I know Ellie Dix does a great job with this as well. Ellie and David Brain are also the hosts on Friday, but we try to make sure that if someone's come just to play test, they get first dibs on what they want to play. Like myself, I might say, oh, I really like the sound of Ellie's game. But if there's a bunch of people who came just to play test and that's already oversubscribed in, I don't get to play it. Because, we want to make sure that those people have a good time and keep coming back, because those people are frankly the people who mean that occasionally any designer can have a bit more time playtesting than they actually gave, because those are the people who help lubricate it and make it work a wee bit better.
Well, what I did last time, and I'll be doing it again now that it's getting bigger, is I actually offered a volunteer ticket. So it's a discounted ticket, but the caveat to that is that if I need your help to do something, or for X amount of time we're kind of needing you to do some corralling of people or doing that, the understanding is that I would, if I asked you, you'd help me kind of do some of that. But equally, when you're not doing that, you're very welcome to play test. And I think I'll be doing that again. So I think one way is it kind of makes the barrier to entry for people who maybe they want to pay a little bit less and they can't afford to do the full thing because they're traveling. It gives them an option to be able to still come, but with the kind of thing that I also get some help with running it. So that'll definitely be something that's happening this time too. Not many people, but just a
few. Firstly, what are the prices for full tickets, and what's the prices for designer tickets? What's the price for someone coming just to playtest? What's the price for one of these volunteer tickets? And the uncomfortable question, why aren't those volunteer tickets free?
Yes. So at the moment, I haven't actually worked out the price of this one yet. So that's part of my thing before the ticket things go live. Part of that is waiting to see if people are willing to sponsor certain parts of it, so I can make the tickets actually cheaper for people. I don't want to put it out there when actually I can offer people a better deal. So I don't have those numbers at the moment. Why aren't the volunteer tickets free? I think it's one of those things that was the way I did it last time. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the way I do it this time. I felt it gave a good sort of mix between kind of people can still... I don't ask very much of people, if I'm honest, or at least I didn't in the first Protospiel. I think it was kind of a few bits in the morning, but I did most of the stuff. it's one of those things that's the way I set it. But I will also consider the fact that we could make it free. I think the bottom line for me is that this event is not for profit. So anything we can get, even if it's a little bit from a volunteer, is all going to go from to the charity. So I'm kind of looking at it as I'm not trying to exploit anybody by using their volunteer thing. I'm still getting them to pay. It's kind of a donation to things that's less than the donation would be normally, but I'm willing and open to hearing ideas. And if I could do it for free, which I may well be able to now, I've got more ticket sales, then that's something I'll consider as I'm putting up the ticket page, definitely.
I would suggest doing it for free if you were to ask my input, which you come on here, I'm going to give it to you whether you want it or not.
Yeah, no, I like it.
I think that, have a bucket or have something there for people to give additionally if they want.
Yeah.
But saying we are able to have you here, and maybe actually making a point of making sure that people are called upon at some point, so that because people do like to, pardon me, sometimes people like to volunteer because they want to feel useful. Sometimes people volunteer because they want some sort of structure, and actually offering that to people can be of help. Because really thinking back to my first time at UK Games Expo, the first ever convention I went to, 2011, I would not have been able to go there had me not essentially not only given me a free ticket, but also subsidized a lot of my other costs. And it still ended up costing me a wee bit because I had to travel down there, and back in the day, you got but anyway, like nowadays you don't get any money. It's just, here's some food vouchers which you need to spend before the end of the weekend. But back in the day it was like, here's some cash, and if you buy cheap food, or then you could potentially, this cash could go towards helping you travel here if you're in a really hard up way. And so I was able to do that, and I think that it just makes it more accessible. Someone doesn't have to justify it. They don't have to say, oh no, I can't afford it, and then feel bad about whether they're allowed to come or not.
I think that's a great viewpoint, actually. I completely see where you're coming from. So I promise, if I do it, I will do it that way this year. Because I think you make a very valid point that maybe I am expecting that by asking people to help me, I'm putting an imposition on them, when actually if they've signed up for a volunteer ticket, they want to do that. Otherwise they wouldn't have done that ticket type, would they? So actually that's probably a preconceived notion by me that I need to sort of challenge. So I think that's a great idea. And
also the other thing is that for a lot of people, especially autistic people, saying, okay, these are the hours, this is when you will be on call, and saying, okay, for these 4 hours of the day you are on call, that might actually be preferable to just saying, okay, if I need you, I will call you, but it turns out that I'm never called upon. Then I might, as someone who likes knowing what's going to happen, likes that kind of security of, this is what's going to happen. There's something nice about that. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, and this is why it's really important to get the viewpoint of people who have got different experiences of these kind of events, because I'm just one person, and that's a really great point. So thanks, Bez. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. We've talked a lot about lots of different things and a lot of advantages. I would like to wrap this up within the next 10 minutes. Is there anything else within a big playtesting event that makes you think we should go there, we should think about running them ourselves, we should go there as playtesters, we should go there as designers?
I think one of the biggest things for me is there's such a nice sense of community at a bigger playtesting event. And there always is with small events too, don't get me wrong. But it kind of makes you realize how many other people are really interested. And they might be people you've not met before. They're not the regular people from your small group. And I think that sense of community and meeting new people is also a massive part and a massive draw of these big events. If you're thinking about doing one as well and organizing one, please do, because it's one of those things that, like, if anybody wanted to run a Protospiel in any other city in the UK, they can come to me and I'll give you every resource that I've got to do so, all the advice I can. There's also other sort of groups that can help you do it. So there's Playtest UK that do similar things, and there's lots of other ones. Break My Game, which is, we started doing a Break My Game in Nottingham, but that's another kind of, can give you a framework to work on. So create an event. You don't need to come up with everything from scratch. There's already people who've done it. And that's what I'd say. If you're interested, even if you just want to know more, reach out to somebody who organizes one. People are more than welcome to reach out to me, because I would love for there to, in 5 years' time, be a Protospiel down south and a Protospiel in Scotland, and ones where maybe in places where there aren't so many playtesting opportunities would be great. So yeah, please, if anyone's thinking of it, you just ask me some questions, go for it.
The last question that I would like to ask before we wrap up is, how can we do a better job of encouraging, positioning this as a fun thing, not just for people who are designing games, but for people who want to check out games? I mean, you've got to kind of want to play board games in the first place. I mean, it's probably more likely that you'd be going to Dicini than going to a big playtest event in Norwich. I say Norwich because Dicini is in Norwich. But, could talk about different cities. Protospiel Nottingham is less likely to attract, even if you made it free entry for people who are just playtesting, it would still be fewer people probably than a game a thing where you are just demoing finished games. But is there a way that we can make that more exciting for more people to think, yeah, I want to check this out, for designers to then get actually not just other designers playing, but get more general people, and to have a thing of, hey, here's on family games, here's some designer games?
I think that it's one of those things where it's about how you put it out there, and it's also where you advertise it. And also what I've learned is the kind of venue you choose is a big thing too, because there are lots of people who might not want to come to a venue where, say, it's in a pub or it's in somewhere else. Thinking about that is important. Also thinking about linking it into the community. So lots of cities and towns have universities or colleges or things like that, and actually linking with those kind of places is really important. We're doing ours now in the building of Antenna, which is part of Confetti, which is a creative college in Nottingham. So by doing that, we're getting links with people who are on game design courses. They might be digital game design courses, but there's still people who are more likely to be interested in this kind of event, and making them kind of family friendly. So explaining that, they're family friendly. Something for me that's super important is I never want to have an event that's not completely accessible for people who have mobility difficulties. So things like that, and thinking about that, thinking about sort of the way that things like the amenities are laid out. Are they kind of mixed amenities, things like that, which are important to people? And I think that those kind of things are really important to get the general public in, and making it exciting, like you said, like the games of the future, kind of doing that and that kind of thing, I think is a really
I came up with that name, and you can feel free to use it.
Oh, okay, thanks, Bez. Yeah, it's great. But making it exciting and just thinking about the different channels you can promote things down. Like this year, I'm going to be probably putting it through Left Line, which is a magazine about Nottingham, the Nottingham Post, and those kind of things where, like, many more people read those than play board games, but they might look and say, oh, cool, this sounds like a great opportunity. It's just in town. Let's pop in. So yeah, thinking about that's important.
That does sound fantastic, and I look forward to checking it out. And before we wrap up the whole show, it's been a lovely delight, but what would you like to ask me? What would you like to ask the audience? What is the question of the day? Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Hello, Xate. We're just in time to answer the question of the day from Chris Kingsnorth.
So I would say my question of the day is, I am in the industry, if you like. I'm seeing it from the inside. From people who are watching and from you, Bez, is there anything we can do to make these playtesting events better? Can we make them more fun? Can we make them more approachable? What are the things that put you off about going to these kind of things? I would like to know those so I can make my event better, so that we can all learn and have a better time. That's what I want to ask people.
I think that having a code of conduct really helps. From my point of view, the ideal is, gender neutral toilets is really good if that's possible. I mean, if there's free options, then that's nice. Like, okay, and saying, yeah, you can use the one with for the gender that you identify as, but here's one if you, are non-binary, or if you feel uncomfortable going into gender toilets at all. That's what was going on in compulsion. That's really good.
Yeah, that's great.
Something where obviously with a code of conduct, you hope you'll never have to use it, but putting it out there for anyone who feels like they might be at risk, anyone who feels like they might be stigmatized, that sends a really strong message.
Definitely.
And I would say that's also telling people what is the minimum barrier to be there, like for you to bring your prototype. Because sometimes when you see photos of these really nice prototypes, you feel like, oh, wait a minute, does this mean that my prototypes need to be better than usual? And I know this is a ridiculous thing, and you might think, Bez, you've been doing this for years, you should feel really confident. But then when it came to, and I actually went into this on the day that I ended up not going to the Croydon day-long playtest, partially because, I was traveling in the morning and I had some anxiety around that, but also oh my gosh, do I need to redraw everything to make sure that it looks slightly nicer? And is it okay that I've just got something of the level that I would come with a Friday playtest, or does it need to be that little bit nicer? Do you know what I mean? And
definitely.
Yeah, and just giving people that guidance as a playtester, as a designer. What's the minimum? How can you have a good day?
I think that's something I'm really sort of trying hard to do. So on the website, on the Protospiel Nottingham.co.uk, there's actually a page all about it, and there's actually a how to be a good, how to play test well and how to be a good play tester. But it also details about the fact that we don't mind what it looks like. It can be on the back of a beer mat, it can be whatever, and trying to sort of encourage that to people, but also reiterating it on the day, I think will be important as well. So something that I'll try and do. And with regards to code of conduct, that's very important to me. So terms and conditions wise, when people book tickets, there's specific ones about behavior on social media prior to the event, and if I feel that people are doing things that are not representative of the Protospiel ethos, they won't be coming in. And I'm with
when you and when you're talking about this is not, oh, someone said something that you disagree with. This is going to be someone like actually being an outright bigot, right?
Yes, yeah. If I was to see something with someone who had done something that was clearly completely against the ethos of Protospiel, that would be it. And I reserve the right to do that. I also reserve the right to do that during the event, and that's all really clearly put out on the terms and conditions when people buy their ticket, and will be reiterated on the day as well. That I'm not going to stand for anybody who's making the day not as it should be, which is inclusive for everybody.
But this is something, again, which, there's always people, oh, why are you censoring things? And there's a paradox of intolerance, but without getting too far down that road, this is something that anyone watching this show should feel reassured that they're going to be in a safe environment. And anyone watching this show, I could imagine someone making a mistake or messing up, and that's not what this is about.
No.
I'm sure that Chris will say, hey, by the way, that thing that you did, this could be taken the wrong way, just to flag this up. And sometimes people will need a small nudge. I mean,
of course, and I realize we're all human, everyone makes mistakes, but there's a degree at which I would have to make a decision about whether it's safe and inclusive to have you at an event. And that's just because that would be the case for any reason, whether it's what you say or how you act it, that would always be the case. It's something that's important to me. It's always been important to me, and it's there in the ticket bookings. If people don't agree with that, they don't have to book the tickets, but hopefully actually it's there as a reassurance to people that I will follow through with doing those things if I need to.
Love it. And I think at this point, let's draw a line under everything and let's ask, over to you, what you're up to. You can share bottomly if you want to. Thursday is traditionally the day when I go to the post office and send out a bunch of stuff. I've got a few things that I need to put through the Royal Mail, prepaid thing, because then that saves me a few pennies, and then print off the stuff and put the stuff into envelope. Well, put that stuff on top of envelopes and put other stuff, which is the games, into the envelopes, and then seal it and take it over. You know how posting stuff works. And
I did it once. Yeah.
It feels. I always feel good because it's like, yeah, people are enjoying these things.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm not going to stress too much. Although I am kind of half in the mind to do a crazy, somewhat weird thing and just run a very low effort Kickstarter for the second edition of a game about selecting 7 cards, speedily searching for synergies, which the first edition hasn't come out yet. And so the first edition is going to come out. Yeah. But the question is, should I bother with this any longer? Should I, is it worth making that second edition? And I would like to gather some feedback. And because of print on demand, I don't need very many people for it. Yeah. So if 5 people say yes, then it'll just be a reprint. If 100 people say yes, and that 50 copies that I printed sells out very quickly at Tabletop Scotland, then I'll be more inclined to spend more time on it and maybe even hire a new graphic designer to help, because Chris has done a great job, but it's clearly not up to the scratch of where I would like it to be. And so I'm thinking of doing a very short, and at that point, actually, it makes me wonder whether it would make sense to run that through Tabletop Scotland, because the one option is to say, yeah, you can't get the first edition. The first edition is only at Tabletop Scotland. The other thing to say is, yeah, there's 50 that I'm about to print. I've already put in the order. I've already sent over the files. Yeah, if you want one of these, then you can do one of these limited to 50, but I actually recommend you go for the second edition, which is going to be marginally better. But I don't know what. Yeah, and
it sounds like a good idea to do it over an event. That's quite a nice little something a bit different, isn't it, for people to have the option to do that? Because I think
running the Kickstarter over the event, and then if it sells out, then you can just go and back to Kickstarter that same day or whatever.
That might be a way to do it. It's quite a nice little. If it's doable with a small print on demand run, then why not? You've got that agility to be able to do it. It's worth a go, right? I think.
Yeah, and it'll either be a second printing or it will be a whole new second edition, and depending on how good it goes.
Sounds great.
Awesome. I'm going to commit to doing that. What are you up to today?
So today I am sending some files off to print for some preview copies of a game that I'm developing, and what am I doing? Well, I'm preparing tomorrow. I'm taking a day off work this weekend. I'm going to a friend's house. We get a few people together every year for a gaming weekend. It's in Burton-upon-Trent, so we call it Burcon. Just the 5 of us. So we'll be having a few games over this weekend.
That sounds absolutely delightful. And to recap and wrap up before we finish up, we started off talking about how Chris can balance while sitting down, but maybe not while somersaulting. We talked about Protospiel Nottingham running 5th and 6th of November. You could go to Guy Fawkes just after, having talks and the notion of the open cafes, films, everything everywhere all at once. Apparently it's quite good. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I've heard literally no one has told me, you know what, I wasn't that fussed about it. So, I mean, I'm not expecting it to be life-changing or anything, because that would be too much, but I'm expecting it to be a pretty good film.
Yeah.
Memento, we talked about that. We talked about Board Game Arena with the Next Station London and Couple and Seikatsu. We talked about doing things with the public, with people. You can have special stuff going on. It's easier to set aside one entire day or one entire weekend and think, oh, I've got to set aside an afternoon or a few hours of this evening. It being more efficient to go there, because it means that you can travel from further afield. So actually that means that you can get a better sense of community, because in the same way that at a convention you get people who go to that one convention who won't have gone if it was just a game day. The time, the length gives people a reason to go and allows them to plan around it. Having the iteration during the event, which, yes, normally you can do with a super simple game, but if you actually need to change components, this allows you to do that potentially over the thing. Suggested by making it a weekend, you can offer something to charity, you can have raffles, you can have sponsorships, you can do things that you couldn't with a normal event, you can have it out in the open, you can make sure that if people are wanting to demo stuff rather than playtest, it needs to be out in the open. And that's the worst thing if people are, hey, do you want to playtest my game? And all they wanted to do was to get your approval. People need to be honest about what they're doing. And it does I do almost wonder whether there should be a, hey, you know what, that's where all the demos go to, kind of coordinate off a wee bit. You can have talks, you can have volunteer tickets. We talked about, again, community folk, it's mattering where you advertise, potentially collaborating with a university so that students who are doing game design or materials design or whatever can get involved. And having that sense of accessibility, having that sense of, code of conduct, all of these things can really help. And Sate says, I love Board Game Arena. Of course you do. And if you want to check me out, I am, of course, Stuff by Bez, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, all those places. Just search for Stuff by Bez or Facebook. And you can also go to stuffbybez.com/Discord or stuffbybez.com/streams if you want to see what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of days. Tomorrow will be a quick show with some topic that just on my way to playtest. It's always a 10-minute show on Friday. Saturday will probably be a playthrough of something. Maybe I'll open up Cora Quest today. Maybe I'll read through the rules because I got a mystery copy on Archon. I have no idea who gave it to me. No one is owning up to it, but it was placed on my stand. None of my volunteers claimed it, so I assumed that was put there for me rather than for someone else at my stand. And so, yeah, and Dan says, no, I didn't give it to you, so I'm quite confused by that. But yeah, that might be the Saturday thing. Sunday, I'm going to have Faranuk from Bangkok coming and chatting, which will be lovely. So potentially meeting a future friend before I go over. But of course, let's talk about Chris. Chris, I hear that there's some sort of podcast, not to mention the Protospiel, that people could get involved in.
Yeah, so protospielnottingham.co.uk is the website for info, or at protospielnots on Twitter. You can find me just in general on Instagram as at tabletop apprentice, and then I also co-host the 10-minute design chat podcast, which is at 10-minute design chat. And if you just type 10-minute design chat podcast into Google, it comes up. And yeah, we talk about design things in 10 minutes or so. Yesterday our episode came out is all about drawing a card and how is that a really simple thing, or actually is it more complicated than we think, and what can you do to make it more exciting?
I have not listened to that episode. I might do so over a quick walk because I'm due a quick wander outside. And Sate wants to claim the copy at Terracon. I mean, not that they were at Terracon, but yeah.
That's great.
Nah,
Thank you.
I think, you know what, we can chat after. If you don't mind an opened up copy, then maybe we can chat afterwards. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. And thank you, Chris, for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Please, everyone, share, spread the word. And for now, there's only one thing left to say, as always, which is, of course, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye. Bye, bye, everyone.